"This meeting is only for the heirs," the lawyer said firmly. I quietly walked over and placed the deeds to my father's properties on the table. Then I looked around the room and said, "You mean the ones I already own?" The smiles on their faces slowly disappeared. In that moment, they realized their entire inheritance had just vanished. When my father passed away, my stepmother, Diana, convinced herself she had finally secured her victory. After 5 years of absolute silence between us, she decided I was no longer family enough to attend the reading of the will. But my father had always been 3 steps ahead of everyone, including her. The expression on Diana's face when I calmly placed those property deeds on the table was truly priceless. "This meeting is for heirs only," the lawyer said with a sneer. I just smiled as I fanned out the documents. "You mean the ones that I already own?" Before I delve into the details of this inheritance battle, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you enjoy stories of family drama and cold, sweet revenge, hit that like button and subscribe for more true accounts. Now, let's get into how I systematically dismantled my greedy stepfamily. The call arrived on a miserable, rainy Tuesday morning in Singapore. I was buried in the final stages of a major international development deal when my phone vibrated with a number I had not seen in half a decade. Grace, my oldest childhood friend, had a voice that cracked as she delivered the news that would permanently alter my life. "Maxwell, your father passed away last night. 5 years. That is how long it had been since I last stepped foot in Maplewood, the small, stifling town where I was raised. 5 years since the explosive, bridge-burning argument with my father that sent me packing my bags and boarding a one-way flight to Asia, fueled by the desperate desire to build a name for myself in the competitive world of international real estate. Now, I was returning not as the prodigal son who had failed, but as a grieving stranger caught in a web of someone else's making. As the taxi pulled up to the sprawling Victorian house that had been my childhood home, a tidal wave of memories crashed over me. I looked at the basketball hoop where my father had patiently taught me to shoot, and the porch swing where we would debate business strategies long into humid summer evenings. I saw the garden where we had laid my mother to rest when I was only 10. Everything seemed smaller, almost diminished, as if my childhood memories had inflated the true scale of the world. Diana's silver Mercedes sat in the driveway, flanked by 2 other luxury vehicles I did not recognize. My father had always been a man who preferred his old, battered Cadillac. It was practical, reliable, and entirely unpretentious, much like the man himself. I paid the driver and stood at the base of the front steps, my suitcase suddenly feeling heavier than it had at the airport. Before I could even reach for the doorbell, the heavy oak door swung open. My stepsister, Brittany, stood there with her face arranged into a carefully calculated mask of somber politeness that never reached her eyes. "Maxwell," she said, her voice dripping with artificial distance. "We were not entirely sure you would show up." "He was my father," I replied, my voice steady. She stepped aside, and I walked into a house that no longer felt like a home. The foyer had been stripped of its character and redecorated in Diana's preferred style of ultra-modern coldness, all polished chrome, sharp glass, and uncomfortable furniture. There was no trace left of my father's warmth, his mahogany shelves, or the worn leather chairs where he used to read. "Mother is in the living room with Tyler and some guests," Brittany informed me, not offering to help with my bags. Diana was perched on a white leather sofa, holding court among a group of town elites I vaguely remembered from my youth. When her eyes locked onto mine, her perfectly painted face registered genuine shock, though she quickly rearranged her features into the expression of a grieving, saintly widow. "Maxwell," she said, rising with a theatrical sigh. "Kiss my cheek. What a delightful surprise. We certainly tried to reach you, but your number had changed." It had not, and we both knew it. "I am sorry for your loss," I said, keeping the interaction formal. "When is the funeral?" "Tomorrow at 2, my stepbrother Tyler interjected, not even bothering to sit up from his sprawled position in an armchair. "We have already handled all the arrangements without consulting you." The message was loud and clear. I was an intruder in their new reality. "Your old room is being used for storage now," Diana added with a thin smile. "But we can make up the guest room for you." I nodded, eager to escape their hostile stares. "I will get settled," I said. As I turned to leave, Diana called after me, her voice honey-sweet but laced with venom. "Harold Stevenson is handling the estate matters," she said. He will be here in the morning to discuss some paperwork. Family only, you understand? I understood perfectly. I was being explicitly excluded from the reading of the will. I found Grace later that evening on the back porch, staring at the old oak tree where my father and I had built a fort when I was 8. They have been absolutely insufferable, Max, she whispered, sitting beside me. Ever since Richard got sick, they have acted like they own every square inch of this town. Diana has been meeting with developers, talking about selling off properties before the ground is even cold. Grace had stayed in Maplewood to run her family's hardware store, and she had a front-row seat to the decay of my father's life. According to her, his health had deteriorated rapidly over the last year, a painful reality Diana had never bothered to share with me. Your dad asked about you all the time, Grace said, her eyes glistening. He kept your international magazine features displayed in his office. My chest tightened until it hurt. Is his office still there? I asked. Grace shook her head. Diana cleared it out last week. She had everything boxed up and moved to a storage locker. She even changed the locks. I thanked Grace and headed back inside, my mind spinning. The guest room was exactly what I expected, cold and sterile, devoid of any history. As I unpacked, I heard muffled voices from the hallway. Once Harold confirms the will tomorrow, we can finally move forward with the Riverside property sale, Diana was saying. Lawrence has already made a generous offer. What about Maxwell? Tyler asked. Do you think he will cause problems? Diana's laugh was sharp and dismissive. What could he possibly do? Richard left everything to us. Maxwell made his choice when he abandoned his father. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling with a mix of grief and white-hot anger. Dad and I had our differences, but I never abandoned him. I had called for months, only to be told by Diana that he was busy or uninterested in speaking with me. Eventually, I had stopped trying, believing the rejection was his own. That night, unable to sleep, I wandered the house. In the library, I found some of my old books still on the shelves. I pulled down my favorite, The Count of Monte Cristo, which Dad had given me on my 16th birthday. He had inscribed it with a message, to Maxwell. Remember that patience and planning always win in the end. As I flipped through the yellowed pages, a sealed envelope slipped out. Inside was a letter in my father's handwriting, dated just 3 months ago. Maxwell, if you are reading this, I am likely gone. Diana does not know about this letter or the arrangements I have made. There is a safety deposit box at First National, box number 247. The key is taped to the back of the Monte Cristo painting in my office. Whatever you may think of me, know that I always had a plan. My heart was pounding as I made my way to the office. The door was locked, but I remembered the loose floorboard in the hallway where my father had always hidden a spare key. Some things never change. Harold Stevenson's law office occupied the entire top floor of one of the few high-rise buildings in downtown Maplewood. It was a modest 4-story structure that my father had actually owned, though I doubted Harold realized the title had been transferred to me 6 months prior. I arrived 5 minutes early, standing in the lobby to steady my nerves. This confrontation had been years in the making, though neither Diana nor her children had any idea what was coming. The receptionist looked startled when I gave my name. She hurried down the hall, returning moments later with a flustered Harold. He had been my father's attorney for 2 decades, drafting my first will and handling my early property investments. Yet, now he looked at me like an intruder. Maxwell, he said, refusing to extend his hand. This is quite unexpected. Today is just a small, private family gathering to discuss preliminary matters. I am family, I replied firmly. In fact, I am my father's only blood relative. Harold's discomfort was palpable. Diana felt it would be best if, given your arrangement, we could schedule a separate meeting to discuss any concerns you might have. I am staying for this meeting, I said. Shall we? Without waiting for his permission, I walked past him toward the conference room. When I pushed open the door, the conversation inside stopped instantly. Diana sat at the head of the table where my father once presided, dressed in sharp black morning attire. Brittany and Tyler flanked her like guards. A few others were present, Dad's banker, a cousin of Diana's who had always loathed me, and an attorney representing Lawrence Blackwood. Diana recovered first. Maxwell, this is a surprise. Her tone made it clear it was not a pleasant one. I came to hear my father's will, I said, taking a seat directly opposite her. Harold hovered in the doorway. Diana, I wasn't aware Maxwell would be joining us. This meeting is for heirs only, she said coldly. Maxwell removed himself from this family years ago. I said nothing, simply opening my briefcase to reveal a thick folder. I think we should begin, Harold said, sitting down to arrange his papers. We are here for the reading of Richard Harrison's last will and testament. As Harold began the formal preamble, I studied the room. Diana maintained a mask of somber dignity, occasionally dabbing at dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. Tyler looked bored, checking his phone repeatedly. Only Brittany showed real emotion, her eyes red and puffy. To my wife, Diana, Harold read, I leave our family home and the sum of $2 million. Diana nodded. This was clearly the minimum she had anticipated. To my stepdaughter, Brittany, I leave $1 million and my collection of first edition books. Brittany looked up, genuinely surprised. To my stepson, Tyler, I leave $1 million and my vintage car collection. Tyler smirked. As for my business interests, Harrison Properties and all associated assets, I leave them to my son, Maxwell Harrison. The room went deathly silent. Then, Diana let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. That's impossible. Richard changed his will 2 years ago. I was there. Harold looked miserable. There was a codicil filed 6 months ago, he admitted. It reversed the previous changes. Diana's face flushed with rage. You never mentioned this. It was filed directly by Richard, Harold said weakly. I only received the official copy yesterday. It doesn't matter, Diana snapped. I have been running the company for a year. The board will never accept Maxwell after he abandoned his responsibilities. This was the moment. I placed the property deeds on the table and slid them toward the center. These are the deeds to the Riverside development, the downtown commercial block, the Maple Street apartments, and 12 other key properties, I said calmly. You will notice they are all in my name. They have been for some time. Diana snatched up the papers, her hands shaking. These must be forgeries. They are not, I said. Dad transferred ownership to me legally over the last 3 years. You can verify this with the county recorder. You mean the properties I already own? I added, unable to resist the irony. Tyler jumped to his feet. You can't just come back after 5 years and take everything. I am not taking anything, I replied. I am claiming what already belongs to me, what my father wanted me to have. Diana turned to the lawyer. Harold, is this legal? Can he do this? Harold was examining the deeds with a stunned expression. The transfers appear legitimate, he nodded reluctantly. If Richard signed these over while he was alive, they are not part of the estate. What about Harrison Properties? Diana demanded. The will says Maxwell gets the company. The company assets were primarily those properties, Harold explained. If the properties are already in Maxwell's name, then the company itself is effectively a shell. I finished his thought. Dad also established Harrison Legacy Holdings last year, transferring operational control of all those assets to a new entity. I am the sole owner. The room erupted. Tyler shouted about contesting the will, while Diana threatened to sue everyone in sight. When she finally ran out of breath, I spoke, my voice quiet but firm. Dad left you financially secure, Diana. You have the house, the investments, and some income properties. He wasn't vindictive, but he built this from nothing, and he wanted his legacy protected. He knew you planned to sell it off piece by piece. I was his wife. I took care of him while you were off playing developer in Asia. She hissed. I wanted to come back, I said. I called for months, but you told me he didn't want to speak to me. He was disappointed in you, she retorted, though a flicker of guilt crossed her face. Then why did he spend his last years creating an elaborate plan to ensure I would carry on his work? I challenged. Brittany spoke up, her voice trembling. Is it true, Mom? Did you keep him from talking to Max? Diana looked ready to scream, but I patted my briefcase. Dad was thorough. He documented everything. His decisions, his reasons, his hopes. He knew exactly what you were planning with Lawrence Blackwood. Harold cleared his throat. Perhaps we should adjourn. This is a lot to process. I agree, I said, rising. My attorneys will be in touch regarding the transition. In the meantime, I would appreciate it if no further business decisions are made without my approval. As I turned to leave, Diana shouted, This isn't over, Maxwell. Your father wasn't in his right mind. We will contest everything. I paused at the door. You are welcome to try, but Dad didn't just leave me property. He left me the truth. Are you sure you want that made public? The threat hung in the air as I walked out, my heart pounding, but my step lighter than it had been in years. The final battle for Maplewood's future was fought not in a courtroom, but in a crowded town council meeting. When I presented my revised plans for the Riverside development, the room was electric. Gone were Diana's hollow dreams of luxury condos and exclusive boutiques. In their place, I proposed a mixed-use community hub featuring affordable housing, local business incubators, and sprawling public green spaces. Lawrence Blackwood, armed with his own polished presentation, tried to sway the council with promises of high tax revenues, but he crumbled when residents began demanding actual solutions for the community. With Grace's vocal support from the back of the room, the council voted unanimously in my favor. As I left, Lawrence approached me. You win this round, he conceded, but I've been in this business a long time. I can wait. Or, I suggested, you could adapt. There is room for you in this plan if you are willing to work within a community-focused framework. He seemed stunned by the offer, but the door was officially open. The final confrontation with Diana happened in the garden of our old home. She looked small, sitting on a stone bench near my mother's rose bushes. I am leaving Maplewood, she said without bitterness. There is nothing left for me here. She looked at me, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. You have won everything. Are you satisfied? It was never about winning, I replied. It was about honoring Dad's legacy and doing right by this town. She confessed that she had only inserted herself into the business to feel closer to him, to secure a future after being left with nothing once before. She agreed to withdraw all legal objections, and as she walked away, I felt not triumph, but a strange, quiet peace. 1 year later, I stood on the observation deck overlooking the construction site. It was no longer a vacant lot, but the beating heart of a revitalized town. My half-sister, Alice, had moved to Maplewood to run the Richard Harrison Foundation, which provided scholarships and sustainable development grants to local students. Even Tyler had found his niche, opening a successful downtown restaurant in one of our buildings, finally earning my professional respect. My life had transformed in ways I never anticipated. My friendship with Grace had blossomed into a partnership of both business and heart. As we walked along the riverfront that evening, I felt the weight of the ring box in my pocket, a symbol of a new chapter. Looking at the thriving community we were building, I realized that my father's final lesson was correct. Property is permanence, but true legacy is found in the people you love and the lives you improve. I had finally come home, not just to claim an inheritance, but to build something that would outlast us all.